My guest today says that 2021 is poised to be a record-breaking year in more ways than one, and especially when it comes to commodities. So please join me in welcoming Lobo Tiggre. He's the founder of Independent Speculator to the show. Lobo, it's been a long time. Welcome to Stansberry Research.
It has. Thank you so much. I'm happy to debut on your new channel here.
Yeah, well, welcome, welcome. Lots of ground to cover with you today. You say 2021 is poised to be a record-breaking year. How so?
Well, there's so much we could say. Let me frame it this way to begin with. A year ago yesterday, actually, I wrote about the COVID-19 outbreak, which was then still centered in China. The World Health Organization had not even yet been willing to call it a pandemic. It was this big unknown. But it was really clear from a few simple facts that it was highly transmissible, and the killer, sorry, bad choice of words, but still, the key point was that it was transmissible before people were symptomatic. The fact that even if it was just like the flu, but the fact that it was transmissible before people knew they had it and highly contagious, you put those two together and it was pretty obvious that something wicked this way was coming in 2020. So here we are, 2021, and that situation is not over. Now we have new variants and they're just as contagious. And I don't want to make this all about COVID-19. And I understand that there's controversy over the medical facts, and I'm not an epidemiologist, neither are you, we don't need to go there. But it is the stage for 2021. And whatever the medical facts may be, the government reaction is very clear, very predictable, and I think highly certain going forward for 2021. And that really sets the stage for what I think will be a record-breaking year for commodities and anything real.
Okay, so let's start with which commodities in particular you think might be superstars this year. Because I know in the past you've loved uranium and I know you love gold.
Sure.
Which are they?
Well, the base case here is actually one based on inflation. Okay, I understand that there are people who are advancing deflationary arguments. They're saying the very same facts that I'm referring to. The pandemic, that's deflationary. People are getting fired in large numbers still. Jobs going away. This is all deflationary. But in my view, the printing press is the more powerful force, and that clearly went into overdrive in 2020. There was no deflation in 2020. Okay, inflation didn't go through the roof, at least not as tracked by CPI, but there was no deflation. So I'm really not persuaded by these deflationary arguments. And I think the evidence, the writing, or rather the printing press is visible on the wall. The money printing is happening. It's not ending anytime soon. So this is great for all commodities, anything real. That having been said, I'm partial to the ones where there are real supply issues, because some of them, supply can be ramped up. Like, for example, oil, right? Clearly, printing more money sends everything real up. But one, it's more sensitive to the immediate deflationary argument if people aren't traveling. And two, the constraints right now are voluntary. You've got OPEC Plus voluntarily cutting back supply. And they can undo that at any moment in time. So oil's not my favorite. I do see a near term, especially if the lockdowns end and there's this coiled spring effect of people bursting out from cabin fever, lots of traveling, lots of going out. I could see oil spiking, but then the long-term economics comes back into play. So I'm long-winded answer. Commodities that I really like. I do like particularly the electrification minerals. I like copper and nickel especially. Not particularly bullish on lithium. Oil, I just said, could spike, but that needs to work out and become an actual structural supply issue instead of a voluntary one. I think gold and silver, you can make the argument for them as commodities. We don't want to leave them out, right? If prices of commodities are going up, that's bullish for gold and silver. But of course, the monetary phenomenon matters as well, making them, I think, a bit of a win-win, however this plays out in 2021. You brought up uranium, which is another, it's not always been a favorite of mine. I was out of uranium for some years, and it wasn't until it had clearly started ratcheting higher that I went long uranium and recommended doing so to others. I have to quickly say, you could make the same arguments about uranium as you do with oil. There's a voluntary supply constraint in that, Cameco, Kazatomprom, the big players have voluntarily cut back production. But it's a lot harder to bring a hard rock mine back online, or even some of these in situ operations that Kazatomprom has. It takes more time to make these ramp up again. And they're not going to do that unless there are much higher prices, right? As oil starts rising, I think all of your marginal producers are incented to come back in. With uranium, you need prices to almost double, really, before the incentive is really there to start bringing marginal assets on, or let alone bringing new supply on. So I do see uranium as quite different. There's potential here for other things, but my short list would be gold and silver almost no matter what, copper and nickel if industrial commodities take off, uranium also almost no matter what, unless there's another accident.
So lots of things to dissect a little further here. The underlying base for all this, though, would you not say we need a weaker dollar to have that commodity boom?
Yes and no. One is I do think we are going to get that. The dollar has rebounded a little bit lately. The race to the bottom, or the race to debase, as it were, somebody wins for a while, somebody else wins for a while, it ratchets lower. But the dollar, I think it's very significant that the dollar hit a 3-year low and remains near multi-year lows, even as you and I speak. The recent uptick is just a tick. It's not, I think, a permanent change in direction for the dollar. So I do think we're going to see that. And I think there's data. It's not just me, theorizing. You look at the money supply, and the US has dramatically caught up with new money supply to the UK, the EU, other major competitors for potential reserve currency status. So there's reason to be bearish on the dollar, I think. And back to our initial point of 2021 being a record year like no other, the 2 trillion proposal right now, I think that's just an opening salvo. If we have 4 years of blue wave, from infrastructure to Green New Deal to the many other items on the wish list, the left green wish list of spending, I think we're going to see a massive debasement of the dollar going forward. And that's even without more COVID variants causing more shutdowns, causing more panic spending on the part of the government.
Do you see a massive economic downturn, Lobo?
I think that, well, eventually, yes, sooner or later, but later can be a while. So that doesn't help as much as investors right now this year. I think my outlook for 2021 would be that if the new variants, this Kent variant, they seem to have got it under control in the UK, but that's on the back of a near total lockdown. Whereas places like Portugal that didn't do that, it's just going through the roof. So as we speak today, we can't say how that's going to play out. And again, whatever the medical facts may be, the government response is highly predictable. Mm-hmm. And as people get alarmed, as hospitals fill up, what the government will do, I think there's no doubt about that. So that could make for a major economic downturn. Absent that, I think the money printing actually does succeed in reflating the next round of happy, joy, joy.
Mining.com actually had a great report that said post-pandemic supercycle in commodities demand had contributed to a new record high of 1.3 trillion market cap for the world's 50 most valuable mining companies. And these are numbers we haven't seen in a very long time in the commodities cycle, Lobo.
Yes, I agree. So you're starting to see that. It's interesting to me that we're still seeing that famous K-shaped recovery, right? The bottom of the K is still going down, or if you want to frame it in terms of that square root shape recovery, right? That long tail of the square root, it's still flat to up. Like the latest job reports numbers out of the US are not good, not going in the right direction. We still have almost 1 million people a week claiming first-time unemployment claims, right? So the fact that the commodities have rebounded really in advance of what we could call a healthy recovery is quite telling. And in my mind, it makes that inflationary argument. It makes that inflationary argument.
Just to expand on silver, you mentioned the Green New Deal. How vital will Green New Deal be for silver? As you know, silver investors have probably been the most patient and hurt this ride. Um, is this finally going to be the year for silver? Maybe it won't happen in 1 year, but Green New Deal is in effect up until 2050. But is this, let's say, the decade finally for silver? And could we see those triple digit silver prices people have longingly waited for?
You're being very kind to me by saying, could we? If you said, will we, you'd be putting me on the spot.
Well, there we go. Will we, Lobo? Will we?
And sort of my without getting too wild waving and, hyperinflation, the world goes to hell in a handbasket, just looking at the trends, I do think there's a double left in gold. I think there's a triple or quadruple left in silver, which does take it to triple digits. And to specifically drill in on what you're saying, there's a case here, and I'm not predicting this will happen, but there's a case here where if you have the economy continuing to struggle, the K or the square root, right, on one hand, and that does actually limit industrial output. But at the same time, you've got all this government money going to the Green New Deal. And as you wisely point out, silver is an energy metal. Silver is essential for the photovoltaics, which are part of this. It's not just batteries. I think it's a mistake to equate battery metals with energy metals. There are other metals that are part of this, and silver is a critical one. You can't have this mainstay of solar power without silver. Okay, concentrated solar is a little bit different, but these panels that are everywhere, those all require silver. So the sort of perfect storm for silver would be there's ongoing economic trouble, so your copper miners scale back, and most silver comes from copper mines. Silver is a byproduct. The purest silver mines tend to be really lead zinc mines with very great silver credits or silver gold. But most silver is a byproduct, most of it byproduct from base metals. And so if you have economic woes reducing supply of base metals, it has a serious impact on silver supply. At the same time, you could see demand going up. And at the same time, fear could be driving demand on the safe haven side. So you get all this demand coupled with supply constraints, potentially boosting silver. It was so disappointing in the last big spike after the crash of 2008 that silver just kind of got to the Hunt brothers spike and then went into reverse.
I know.
Inflation adjusted, it didn't even hit that, right?
I'm cheering for all those silver investors.
I think
in my heart,
if this happens, I think we will blow away the Hunt brothers spike, right, even in inflation adjusted terms.
Last point. I didn't think I was going to go there, but I will. I need to ask you about Bitcoin and this whole, taking the power away from gold. How much of a dent is Bitcoin really putting on gold here, Lobo? How do you see it?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. I wasn't planning to go there today, but it just so happens that I just did for me, it was kind of a seminal interview with a well-known Bitcoin advocate named Robert Breedlove. That's available at independentspeculator.com. There's this interview there available for free. And I interviewed him because he's hardcore pro-Bitcoin, and Bitcoin specifically, not just all cryptos. But he's really reasonable, and he speaks my language. He comes from an Austrian economics background. He'll quote the same guys on my bookshelf,
right?
Me, right? Defending Bitcoin. So I just thought it was really an opportunity to talk to somebody who could explain some things to me that didn't make sense. Now, to answer your question, so what I'm saying is, I'm still thinking about this. I'm actually working on a new article right now on, okay, I've been studying Bitcoin, I've learned all this, but as a speculator, am I going to buy it or not? That's really the bottom line here. And I'm still working on that.
Okay, let me just ask you this. Sorry, did you finish your point?
I did, but I want to answer your question, that is it stealing gold's thunder? And I think the answer there is yes and no, but actually mostly no. In that, obviously, there is momentum chasing capital, right? We see the flavor of the day, whether it's pot stocks or Bitcoin in 2017, or now again, or gold and silver in their time, right? There's capital out there that sees what's going on. There's the flavor of the day. Let's pile into lithium or whatever it is, right? So yeah, if that shifts from gold to Bitcoin or anything else, yes, that money goes away. Doesn't affect the fundamentals of the business. And at the same time, the whole crypto phenomenon has educated a generation or two of younger people who couldn't have cared less about hard money issues, about the dangers of fiat currency. I mean, even just the fact that we can talk about fiat currency, and before it used to be only libertarians would say, oh yeah, fiat currency, that's bad, right? Now everybody gets it. You know, the talking heads on mainstream financial media are talking about fiat currency, and that's not a compliment,
I
right?
know.
And this is thanks to the cryptos. They have educated the world on the dangers of fiat currency.
That's
Sorry,
such a good
I just think that's really bullish.
It's a good point, because when I started in the industry over 10 years ago, like fiat was the F word. So now, now it's incredible to see it become so mainstream, and like you said, open the minds of this new generation. Final thought on Bitcoin. I see you on the fence about it. What's the hurdle for you? Why can't you cross over? What's stopping you or preventing you? What's the hard thing for you when it comes to Bitcoin to digest?
I'm still having a very hard time coming up with a rational way to put a value on it. And despite being a speculator, a well-known speculator, I'm really not a gambler. I need to feel that if I'm going to buy something, that its price, in whatever terms I track it, will go up. And to do that, I need to feel, you know, that there's a value proposition, that the value is greater than the price I'm paying now, or that it will be. Like in a mining stock, that I'm confident this discovery is happening, right? So that it, you know, as Gretzky said, skate to where the puck will be, right? I can't wrap my head around a valuation for Bitcoin. Therefore, I'm stuck, right? I'm grinding my gears on how do I, as a speculator, play this.
People would say, but what do you care? It's going to go to 50,000. It's going to go to 100,000. Why not park some of your money in there?
See, that's the gamble, right? But it might also blow up tomorrow, right? If the feds announce that they're going to criminalize Bitcoin tomorrow, okay, maybe long term that doesn't affect, you know, the ultimate case for Bitcoin taking over, you know, the role of money in the free market future. But I think the price tanks now, and anybody who buys now could get seriously hurt. And here's one thing to keep in mind, you know, what I might do privately. And by the way, I did put some play money into Ethereum a while back, and I tripled my money. But it wasn't a disciplined speculation. It was literally a couple $100 that I said, oh, what the heck? You know, I don't care if it goes to zero, It's not going to hurt me, right? But as a newsletter writer, as a person whose guidance people rely on, I you know, it would really hurt me if I were to go say, hey, let's play with this, and then it blew up in my face.
And I think you're making an important differentiation there, Lobo, is that we tend to speak about gambles and speculation in the same sentence, but a speculative play versus a gamble is not the same thing.
Right. Now, and our Bitcoin friends are going to say it's not a gamble for all these fundamental reasons.
I'm not saying it is a gamble.
But those are the things I'm still trying to wrap my head around, right? If I can get there, right, then maybe so. And one of the most persuasive arguments I'm still thinking about is the halving argument. Like you look at that chart and what happens after the halving. You know, that's data, right? That's not just theory. That's not just libertopia thinking. You know, that's price action history. So it is interesting. And I do think it's a mistake for people to just dismiss it. Oh, it's a Ponzi scheme or whatever. I think as a speculator in financial matters, it's my responsibility to take it seriously, look at it seriously, and make a serious call one way or the other on it.
And have an open mind. That's what we do. Lobo Tiggre, I appreciate this time today with you. Thank you so much for the great conversation.
Thank you, Daniela.
And thank you for watching this edition of Stansberry Research. We'll have much more for you, so be sure to stay tuned and keep following us on all our social media channels. Thanks for watching. I'm Daniela Cambone.